Her breasts were probably pale and freckled and even a little bottom-heavy, but impressive. And her face was interesting. Unusual, even. He watched her at the register for a moment longer, feeling the familiar jelly-legged sensation that arrived whenever he breached the perimeter of an attractive female. He concentrated, used the old Zen strategy, tried to look at her without looking at her. Peripheral ogling. That's what they called it. Her skin was a smooth white. He would have called it milky, if the description hadn't seemed archaic, like something from those Jane Austen novels his mother used to love. At the register, she seemed reserved, hesitant, content to peruse crumpled receipts. She still hadn't noticed him. This, he thought, was an opportunity. He'd heard a theory on positive thinking from his older brother, who provided unsolicited wisdom whenever applicable, which his brother believed was all the time. This particular nugget: if he, Barkley, simply replaced his typically insecure thoughts with confident thoughts, alpha male thoughts, he'd actually start to behave like one of them. Those countless conversations where every word came out 20 IQ points lower than his capability, each syllable feeling like a wooden child's block between his teeth? Gone. Out the window. Think confident thoughts, Charlie had coolly advised him, before canning a jump shot from the corner of the driveway. And yet, out in the field with a pretty girl lurking on the horizon, he'd decided that she was pretty now. It wasn't so easy. Sure, he could try to do it, even if for him it seemed absurd. Instead of being afraid of this cashier girl, Ginny, he should be thinking something macho, chest puffed out like a matador. Like, for example, that he'd be getting laid tonight. Yes, that was the tactic. He would be the classic modern-day conqueror, all machismo, zero cuddling. Out by morning, leave without a note. Sure, there was a misogynistic aftertaste to that, but he had to do it, had to pretend he was someone else if he wanted any chance of success. So say it again. He, Barkley Brunson, brother of the legendary Charlie Brunson, son of the even bigger, more legendary stud Henry Brunson, was getting laid tonight. That was his character arc, his sacred trajectory. But Ginny still hadn't noticed him. She remained anchored at the register, solemnly reading a book by Tom somebody. He couldn't see the rest of the name. He continued observing from a distance, and then Doring walked by and tapped him on the shoulder with his grading folder. "Ready to review? This way, Barkley." Doring opened a scarred black door, and they entered his cluttered office, fortified with an abnormal number of fantasy magazines and orange highlighters. There was a square cedar desk in front of them. "Sit," Doring said. Barkley adjusted himself on the metal folding chair. He was 23 and without a full-time job. This class was either a step to something greater or yet another hopeless distraction. He put the blue folder on the desk, opened it up. The font of his new draft appeared to be bleeding mascara. "Let's talk about the story you gave me last week, Barkley." "Okay. What did you think?" "Well, let's start with the beginning." "Okay," Barkley said again. He felt apprehension, as he always did when hearing his work reviewed. But he was also mindful that Doring was no professor, at least not yet. "The beginning works well," Barkley nodded, waiting for the anvil to fall. "It's about a 20-something coming of age as a womanizer, right? And the catch, of course, is that it's all happening in the middle of a Chicago zombie apocalypse. This is a nice touch, Barkley, really. You've got a knack for taking literary elements, or at least character-based ones, and using tried-and-true genre tropes as a backdrop. Now, finding the mundane within the fantastic isn't necessarily a new thing, but it's interesting enough, and you write with an exuberance that's hard to dislike. No one else in the class